Okay. Yeah, this is, all right, so guys, this is a story out of the back of the big book. It's called Freedom from Bondage.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is what I want you guys to pay attention to understand. The one thing I talk, can you shut that door, Jody?
Yes, sir.
And Colin, just tell them to please be quiet. So here's the thing. The thing, if you know anything about me, I say it all the time. It's not our drugs and our drinking, it's our thinking, right? Like, because if we had drugs or drinking problems, the first time we stopped, we wouldn't have went back, right? So why do we keep going back? Why did we start to begin with, right? And that's why I say we have a spiritual sickness. I don't just say that, it says it in the book, it says that everywhere. We have a spiritual sickness. I want you to watch this lady's story. I want you to watch the way that, guys, Joey. I know, you can do it quietly, please. So watch the way this lady goes through her life. Watch her mindset. She's under the impression, basically, that if she gets what she wants, or if she gets something that she's missing, that she's going to be happy and complete. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because how many of us thought that? How many of us set a goal, had, whether it was a job, a guy, a girl, money, car, whatever it was, we set a goal, and when we finally attained it, it really didn't do for us what we thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How about every time? Every time. It's almost like the idea is actually better than the actual thing. All right, so good. Thank you, Jacob. Jake, I know it's Jake.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, and read this. And really, guys, pay attention. Because if you realize that this isn't us our whole entire life, we're basically saying, man, if I get what I want, I'll be happy. If I can get all the ducks in a row, if I can get all the pieces of the puzzle, everything would be perfect, and I'll be good. And how many times do we get things like that, and we're still looking, still don't feel right, still have piece missing? Do you understand what I'm saying? All right, go ahead, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Freedom from Bondage, page 544, for anybody that didn't hear it. Young when she joined this AA believes her serious drinking was a result of even deeper defects. She tells here how she was set free. The mental twist that led up to my drinking began many years before I ever took a drink, for I'm one of those whose history proves conclusively that my drinking was a symptom of a deeper trouble. Through my efforts to get down to causes and conditions, I stand convinced that my emotional illness has been present from my earliest recollection. I never did react normally to any emotional situation. The medical profession would probably tell me I was conditioned for alcoholism by these things that happened to me in my childhood, and I'm sure they would be right as far as they go, but AA has taught me I am the result of the way I reacted to what happened to me as a child.
All right, so real quick. How many of us have been through some things as a child? Trauma, divorce, pain, sexual abuse, stuff like that, right? Now, a lot of the times, I don't know about you, but a lot of times we didn't deal with that in a proper way, right? Mm-hmm. What did we do? We kind of just tried to forget about it. Anybody in here believe that it's possible to stuff something down and then move about your life? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I think people have done it. I don't know that I could do it.
Well, you've been doing it for a while, right? But you're an alcoholic. You understand what I'm saying? Like, maybe, just maybe, the stuff that you tried to stuff down, the stuff that you didn't try to deal with, it's coming out in other self-destructive and bad behavior. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's really what it is, because listen, a lot of times we do that. A lot of times say stuff like this. Well, what can you do? It is what it is. Man, can't do nothing about it. But I promise you this, when it comes to the trauma and the pain, because even if it is, your parents getting divorced, or even that stuff is traumatic for us, or loss of a parent, loss of a friend, a serious breakup. That's the type of stuff that alters the way we think and we feel. And then if we start using, right, because here's the thing I say all the time, the one thing that every single person, because we have a lot in common, but the stuff that we have in common here, every single person on the whole planet Earth has in common is, we all have been through painful things in our life. You can judge how painful things are, but we all go through pain. How you deal with that pain, how you choose to cope with it, is going to be how you deal with that stuff for the rest of your life. How many people in here were taught healthy coping skills as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, right? I mean, I'm not just saying this. A lot of times for us men, women too, a lot of time for us men, it's, oh man up, stuff it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
don't cry, be a man.
Yeah, that's what society tells us. That's what our parents might have told us. That's what it is. But it's like, I'm telling you, when you stuff that shit down, it comes out in other ways. You either deal with your trauma or it's going to deal with you. And a lot of times we don't see the correlation. You understand what I'm saying? We don't think it has anything to do with it. We think we've put it away, but we really haven't. Wait till you work the steps, or wait till you continue therapy, and wait till you see how it all plays a part. It's really going to blow your mind. Go ahead.
What is
No. Go ahead.
What is much more important to me, AA has taught me that through this simple program I may experience a change in this reaction pattern that will indeed allow me to match calamity with serenity. I am an only child, and when I was 7 years old, my parents separated very abruptly. With no explanation at all, I was taken from my home in Florida to my grandparents' home in the Midwest. My mother went to a nearby city to go to work, and my father, being an alcoholic, simply went. My grandparents were strangers to me, and I remember being lonely, terrified, and hurt. In time, I concluded that the reason I was hurt was because I loved my parents, and I concluded, too, that if I never allowed myself to love anybody or anything, I could never be hurt again.
Okay, is that a healthy coping skill? No, it's probably, what it is a defense mechanism, right? But it's not a healthy defense. It's not, I mean, come on. So what do you think her chances are of having a healthy relationship as she moves forward? Yeah, it's not there. I mean, yeah, exactly. What happens is she starts depending on the alcohol. Like I tell you this all the time, if you're sitting in this room, if you're me or Kyle, anybody sitting in this room, the absolute most powerful and intimate and close personal relationship we've ever had was with drugs or alcohol. We always knew we could count on it. It always got us to where we wanted to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? It always let the fear subside. It always, I mean, guys, someone tell me in here, like, what's it like when we're going through life and we get a couple of beers in us or some this or some that? It almost feels like, well, it is. It's like relief, right? Like, it's like, oh, like, okay, I can breathe again. And that's why we leaned on it so much. It had become our everything until it turns on us and we wind up being in a place like this or jail or AA before, whatever it is. But at this point, we used that too much, and now it's an even bigger problem than the problems we were dealing with. Good.
It became second nature for me to remove myself from anything or anybody I found myself growing fond of. I grew up believing that one had to be totally self-sufficient, for one never dared to depend on another human being. I thought that life was a pretty simple thing. You simply made a plan for your life based upon what you wanted, and then you needed only the courage to go after it. In my late teen years, I became aware of emotions I didn't count on. Restlessness, anxiety, fear, and insecurity. The only kind of security I knew anything about at the time was material security. I decided that all these intruders would vanish immediately if I only had a lot of money. The solution seemed very simple. With cold calculation, I set about to marry a fortune, and I did. The only thing this changed, however, was my surroundings, and it was soon apparent that I could have done the same uncomfortable emotions with an unlimited checking account that I could go on a working girl's salary.
All right, so real quick, how many people in here came up from humble beginnings? Okay, and I love how Kanye West said, money isn't everything, but not having it is. Right? When you grow up poor, and maybe you have what she had or what I had, that restlessness, that anxiety, that thing, you feel like something's always missing. When you grow up poor, you're convinced that if you have money, everything will be okay. You know what I mean? So I was just like her. Like, I was like, okay, because I was convinced, like, as long as I had enough, everything would be okay. And it wasn't the case for me, and it's not the case for her. And here's the whole thing I want you to understand in this story. This lady, for a very long time, was convinced that she knew what was wrong, and she went after what she thought was wrong, and it really wasn't wrong. So maybe, just maybe, we had been given bad information. We had formulated ideas and thoughts and went through life, and maybe we just don't know what's going to make us happy. Do you understand? Because this disease is rooted in low self-esteem and fear, and it's our selfishness and self-centeredness that kind of guides this thing. And so if you tell somebody like, oh man, life is not about you. Life is not about me anymore. It's about us, we, them, and they. And the more you give, the better you feel about yourself. I'm telling you that went completely against my way of thinking growing up, which was as long as I have enough, I'll be okay. Do you understand? So I really believe this. Like, it was really like you couldn't tell me any different, because this was a belief system that was so deep down inside that if somebody would have even told me that at 15 years old, 20, 25 years old, like, Mike, you're not looking at things the right way, you need to live like this, I would have thought they were crazy. Good.
It was impossible for me to say at this point, maybe there is something wrong with my philosophy, and I certainly couldn't say, maybe there is something wrong with me. It was not difficult to convince myself that unhappiness was the fault of the man that I had married, and I divorced him at the end of a year. I was married and divorced again before I was 23 years old, this time to a prominent band leader, a man whom many women wanted. I thought this would give me ego strength, make me feel wanted and secure, and alleviate my fears, but again, nothing changed inside me. The only importance in all of this lies in the fact that at 23, I was just as sick as I was at 33 when I came into AA. But at that time, I apparently had no place to go because I had no drinking problem. Had I been able to explain to a psychiatrist the feelings of futility, loneliness, and lack of purpose that had come with my deep sense of personal failure at this second divorce, I seriously doubt that the good doctor could have convinced me that my basic problem was a spiritual hunger. But AA has shown me this was the truth. And if I had been able to turn to the church at the time, I'm sure they could not have convinced me my sickness was within myself, nor could they have shown me that the need for self-analysis that AA has shown for me is vital if I am to survive. So I had no place to go, or it seemed to me. I was afraid of anything or anybody after I learned about drinking. It seemed right from the beginning that with liquor I could always retire to my little private world where nobody could get at me to hurt me. It seems only fitting that when I did finally fall in love, it was with an alcoholic, and for the next 10 years I progressed as rapidly as humanly possible into what I believe to be a hopeless alcoholism. During this time, our country was at war. My husband was soon in uniform and among the first to go overseas. My reaction to this was identical in many respects to my reaction to my parents leaving me when I was 7. Apparently, I'd grown physically at the customary rate of speed, and I had acquired an average amount of intellectual training in the intervening years, but there had been no emotional maturity at all. I realize now that this phase of my development had been arrested by my obsession with self, and my egocentricity had reached such proportions that adjustment to anything outside my personal control was impossible for me. I was immersed in self-pity and resentment, and the only people who would support this attitude or who I felt understood me at all were the people I met in bars and the ones who drank as I did. It became more and more necessary to escape from myself, for my remorse and shame and humiliation when I was sober were almost unbearable.
All right, so what is she talking about right here? She's talking about the progression, right? The more she drank, the more self-pity, the more resentment, the more she drank. Is that not how we do? I mean, like I said, if you can't, if you're not identifying with this, I don't really think you're kind of paying attention, because even when she said a few paragraphs earlier, if somebody would have explained to me that what you have is a spiritual hunger, I would have looked at them like they were crazy, like just how I was saying that before. You're going to tell me I have, because really, where is your spirit? Where is our spirit? If you had to point to where your spirit was, see, I always kind of say like right near my heart, right? Like, but also too, it's like the energy around you, but my spirit was inside. Like, you're telling me that like I have a piece missing and I got this, like, it made no sense to me. I couldn't understand that, and maybe you can't understand that here, but what I'm trying to get you to do is look at the way this lady, how many of us went through life? How many of us are convinced that if we get what we want, we'll be happy? And I like how she said like that it was her ego, like, you ever hear in an AA meeting, like we're egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, right? Because here's the whole thing. Does anybody know anything? Like, so someone tell me what it's like to be an egomaniac. What do you, if I say he's an egomaniac, what do you think?
Driven by your own selfish goals and means.
Well, I know when I used to hear that, like an egomaniac, it just meant somebody who thought they were the greatest thing ever. Yeah. But like when you're immersed in that self-pity and that morbid self-reflection, that's all ego too, because all you're thinking about is yourself. So that too is also ego. So it's not the I am the greatest, because that is some of us sometimes, right? How many of us, when we're kind of whatever, how many of us can walk into a room and think everybody's a fucking idiot? You know, when we're not right, when we're uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, and here's the whole thing. It's not them, it's us, right? Like, it's not them, it's us. Like, but all of us, and listen, I mean, come on. Sometimes we'll feel like that. We go to a restaurant or we're driving, right? We're driving, everybody on the road's an idiot and this and that. But here's the thing. That comes from that spiritual sickness. That comes from that restless, irritable discontent, right? Like, everybody, we're like a raw nerve, and everybody's getting under our skin. This guy, you know what I mean? Am I making sense? Okay, good.
I just to add there, that
Yeah, please.
part that I read where she said had been arrested by the obsession with self, meaning she'd been detained. She's not getting out.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what it talks about. It's that it's the disease is up here in our brain. And here's the thing. It could be a traumatic event when you're younger, like her parents getting divorced and her moving with her grandmother, her father leaving, she was abandoned, her whole life was turned upside down. When you go through a traumatic event like that, you stop progressing. Like, you either deal with that or boom, that's it. You know what I mean? And when you start using or drinking the way we do, you stop progressing. That's why they'll tell you, like, when you start going to AA and you start working the steps, they're like, man, you're growing up in public. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're growing up in public because now you're coming in and now you are learning healthy coping skills, but you're also dealing with the stuff in the past that you haven't dealt with. Guys, everybody in this room, even our younger people, there's been a ton of things, sometimes what some people would consider minor, to some things that are major, that we weren't dealing with, and that stuff is affecting you every single day, I promise you. Like this lady said, like, she's already been divorced twice. You know what I mean? Remember how she said, anybody that I ever got close with, I kind of messed it all. Like, this is the type of stuff we do. When I say we're self-destructive to the core, I don't mean just with the drinking and the drug use. That's obvious, right? The way we drink or get high, like, that is self-destructive. I'm talking about the way we handle relationships. I'm talking about the way our brain says, fuck this, I don't need group, I don't need this, I don't need AA, God this, God. Like, it's like everything that's gonna get you better and everything that's good for you and everything that's gonna help you thrive it's gonna go against every self-reliant natural instinct you have. That's how messed up your brain is. Right now, today, that's how messed up your brain is, that if you listen to your brain on a regular basis, you're gonna wind up repeating the same things and doing the same things over and over. It's why we're here to begin with. We're here trying to rewire things. We're here trying to get some coping skills. We're here trying to get some advice. Like, I'm telling you, listen to what I'm saying. When you leave here, if you follow the plan that they set up for you, go to meetings, go to outpatient, do this, do that, and obviously don't drink, like that's the most, drink or get high. If you do that, you will heal, you will get better, you will thrive, and you will have so much of a better life. If you start saying, fuck IOP, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. I'll go to a couple of meetings a week, but I got to clean the garage and do this other, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't take care of yourself and you don't take care of this and you don't deal with those past traumas and I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time, if you're lucky, that you wind up back here. Go ahead.
The only way existence was possible was through rationalizing every sober moment and drinking myself into complete oblivion as often as I could. My husband eventually returned, but it was not long until we realized we could not continue our marriage. By this time, I was such a past master at kidding myself that I had convinced myself I had set out a war and waited for this man to come home, and as my resentment and self-pity grew, so did my alcoholic problem. The last 3 years of my drinking, I drank on my job. The amount of willpower exercised to control my drinking during working hours, diverted into a constructive channel, would have made me president. And the thing that made the willpower possible was the knowledge that as soon as my day was finished, I could drink myself into oblivion. Inside, though, I was scared to death, for I knew that the time was coming, and it couldn't be too remote, when I would be unable to hold a job. Maybe I wouldn't be able to hold any job, or maybe, this was my greatest fear, I wouldn't care whether I had a job or not. I knew it didn't make any difference where I started. The inevitable end would be Skid Row. The only reality I was able to face had been forced upon me by its very repetition. I had to drink. And I didn't know there was anything in the world that could be done about it. At this time, I met a man who had 3 motherless children, and it seemed that and it seemed that might be a solution to my problem. I had never had a child, and this had been a satisfactory excuse many times for my drinking.
All right, so hold on. You see how her whole entire life, right? I needed money. I wanted a job, husband. This always looking for a missing piece. Now, here it is. Another man that's got some children. Well, I've never had kids. How long, if at all, do you think this keeps her sober?
For a very small while.
Yeah.
Give me a guess. Let's take guesses.
A week, maybe.
No,
Okay.
but I'll give her
About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
A
Okay.
year and a half.
Okay. I already know.
Couple days.
Couple days. Okay, week and a half. Go ahead. You guys are all close.
I had never had a child, and this had been
No.
a satisfactory excuse many times for my drinking. It seemed logical to me that if I married this man and took the responsibility for these children, that they would keep me sober. So I married again. This caused a comment from one of my AA friends when I told my story after coming into the program that I had always been a cinch for the program, for I had always been interested in mankind. I was just taking them one man at a time. The children kept me sober for darn near 3 weeks. And then I went on, please God, my last drunk. I've heard it and said it many times in AA. There's just one good drunk in every alcoholic's life, and that's the one that brings us into AA. And I believe it. I was drunk for 60 days around the clock, and it was my intention, literally, to drink myself to death. I went to jail for the second time during this period for being drunk in an automobile. I was the only person I'd ever known personally who had ever been in jail, and I guess it was most significant that the second time was less humiliating than the first had been. Finally, in desperation, my family appealed to a doctor for advice, and he suggested AA. The people who came knew immediately I was in no condition to absorb anything of the program. I was put in the sanitarium to be defogged so that I could make a sober discussion about this for myself. It was here that I realized for the first time that as a practicing alcoholic, I had no rights. Society can do anything it chooses to do with me when I am drunk, and I can't lift a finger to stop it. For I forfeit my rights through the simple expedite of becoming a menace to myself and to the people around me.
Okay, so I like that. That is definitely true. But let me ask you this. Who in here is married or in a relationship? Do you guys, was it like me where you were kind of the fuck up of the relationship? Mm-hmm. So you kind of take the blame for everything? Because what kind of leg do you really have to stand on?
None.
Because it's very wobbly, if one at all, right?
I would always say, even when I wasn't, they could bring up drinking.
Well, hey, listen, that's what she just said. As a practicing alcoholic, I forfeit all my rights. And it's true. Because, and here's the thing, all the stuff that, it might not be true. We might not be whatever, like, it all might not be true. Like,
My right to bitch goes right out the window.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly it. Like, you know what I mean? Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And you might have, listen.
I might have a legitimate
Exactly.
bitch.
At certain times, you might
Still
have.
out the window, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that leg you have to stand on is shaky and wobbly. Because it'll be like, what about that?
Yeah.
And I like that because here's the whole thing. If anybody in here has friends and family and children and grandchildren, people that they love, we all have a responsibility to them. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Because you hear unconditional love. I don't really know if that's even true, right? Maybe with your kids, but like a husband or wife or whatever, there are conditions. You kind of have to hold up your end. And here's the thing. If they didn't hold their end up on our part, we'd take them to court over that shit, right? Like, no. Well, I mean, listen, my ex-wife used to say to me all the time, you'd never put up with this stuff I put up with.
Well,
I'm like, she's
I've heard
right.
that shit.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. So here's the thing. I was just why I stopped him is really got to understand. As a drug addict or an alcoholic in a relationship, even with your kids, they'll love you. Most likely they'll love you, but they're kind of stuck with you. They'll look at you funny. They'll lose a little bit of respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I say this all the time about kids. If you have kids or grandkids, kids do not respond to do as I say. Some don't even respond to do as I do. You never know. But I promise you, they're not going to respond to do as that. First word they'll throw at you is hypocrite or this. You know what I mean? Like, how dare you?
You do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we really do. We have a responsibility. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. We have a responsibility to hold up our end of the bargain.
Right.
okay? We are responsible. We're responsible for the things we do, say, and more importantly, the energy we bring. Like I tell you guys all the time, as a practicing drug addict and alcoholic, you're sucking the life out of your people, quickly or slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody that's clean and sober and really doing good, you're breathing life into your people. You know what I mean? Like just by setting the example. You know what I mean? Just by setting the example. Just by having those good coping skills and good energy and being kind and loving to people. You're setting the example. It's like you're putting the right energy out there. Go ahead.
With deep shame came the knowledge, too, that I had lived with no sense of social obligation, nor had I known the meaning of moral responsibility to my fellow man. I attended my first AA meeting 8 years ago, and it is with deep gratitude that I am able to say I've not had a drink since that time, and that I take no sedation or narcotics. For this program is to me one of complete sobriety. I no longer need I no longer need to escape reality. One of the truly great things AA has taught me is that reality too has two sides. I had only known the grim side before the program, but now I had a chance to learn about the pleasant side as well. The AA members who sponsored me told me in the beginning that I would not only find a way to live without having a drink, but that I would find a way to live without wanting to drink if I would do these simple things.
Hey, let me ask you something. Seriously, answer what I'm saying. Cullen, if you could find a way to live life where you don't even want to drink, would that seem like a miracle to you?
Yes.
That's what I've been saying. I mean, that's what I want.
Yeah, because listen, here's the thing. I never, ever, in a million years, last time I was sitting in treatment, I didn't believe that. I was just hoping that I could stay sober long enough to stop fucking things up. You understand what I'm saying? Like, but I never knew I could get to a place where I didn't want to get high. Why? Because I always wanted to get high. I've been wanting to get high since I'm 5 years old, but I didn't even know what drugs and alcohol were. You know what I mean? No, do you understand what I'm saying? Like constantly chasing something. Looking out, that's why it says we get obsessed with self. Why? Because we have that spiritual malady, that spiritual sickness where we feel like something's missing, and we're looking at it these two eyes out into the world, every person, place, or thing, or situation, or materialistic things, or girls, or sports, or whatever it is, and we're constantly looking for something to make us feel better. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
We are constantly chasing something. We are convinced. Like, that's what I love about this story, because I feel like every single person in the world could get this. You know what I mean? How many of us are convinced that if we get what we want, we'll be happy? When they tell me, Mike, happiness is an inside job, I have no idea what you mean. Do you understand what I'm saying? I had no idea what I meant. And here's the thing, when I live the way I live, and I'm doing drugs and selling drugs and running around, letting everybody down, even though I'm trying not to, like, I got all these good intentions, but my actions are showing the opposite. Like, now I really don't like myself. I call myself a piece of shit all day. I hate this, I hate that. I'm so negative. Like, how in the world could I ever be happy when all I do is hurt people and down myself and talk? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's completely, this thing is so crazy because it's so simple. You get what you give. Whatever you put out in the world is what you're going to get. So if you're out there lying, cheating, and stealing, getting high and this and that, no wonder you're miserable. You know what I mean? Like, no wonder you're miserable, but here in our minds, we're living our best life, right? Like, we're like, oh, I just want to be left alone so I can do this and do that. But it's like, we're really not happy. We've never been comfortable. Good.
They said if you want to know how this program works, take the first word of your question. The H is for honesty, the O is for open-mindedness, and the W is for willingness. These are Big Book calls the essentials of recovery. They suggested that I study the AA book and try to take the 12 steps according to the explanation in the book, for it was their opinion that the application of these principles in our daily lives would get us sober and keep us sober. I believe this, and I believe too that it is equally impossible to practice these principles to the best of our ability, a day at a time, and still drink, for I do not think the two things are compatible. I had no problem admitting I was powerless over alcohol, and I certainly agreed that my life had become unmanageable. I had only to reflect on the contrast between the plans I made so many years ago for my life with what really happened to know I couldn't manage my life drunk or sober. AA taught me that willingness to believe was enough for a beginning. It's true in my case, nor could I quarrel with restore us to sanity, for my actions, drunk or sober, before AA were not those of a sane person. My desire to be honest with myself made it necessary for me to realize that my thinking was irrational. It had to be, or I could not have justified my erratic behavior as I did. I've been benefited from a dictionary definition I found that reads, rationalization is giving a socially acceptable reason for socially unacceptable behavior, and socially unacceptable behavior is a form of insanity. AA has given me serenity of purpose and the opportunity to be of service to God and to the people about me, and I am serene in the infallibility of these principles that provide the fulfillment of my purpose. AA has taught me that I will have peace of mind in exact proportion to the peace of mind I bring into the lives of other people. And it has taught me that the true meaning of the admonition, happy are ye who know these things and do them. For the only problems I have now are those I create when I break out in a rash of self-will. I had many spiritual experiences since I've been in the program, many that I didn't recognize right away, for I'm slow to learn and they take many guises. But one was so outstanding that I like to pass it on whenever I can in the hope that it will help someone else as it has me. As I said earlier, self-pity and resentment were my constant companions, and my inventory began to look like a 33-year diary, for I seemed to have resentment against everybody I had ever known. All but one responded to the treatment, suggested in the steps immediately, but this one posed a problem. This resentment was against my mother. It was 25 years old. I had fed it, fanned it, and nurtured it as one might a delicate child, and it had become as much a part of me as my breathing. It had provided me with excuses for my lack of education, my marital failures, personal failures, inadequacy, and of course my alcoholism. And though I really thought I had been willing to part with it, now I knew I was reluctant to let it go. One morning, however, I realized I had to get rid of it, for my reprieve was running out, and if I didn't get rid of it, I was going to get drunk, and I didn't want to get drunk anymore. In my prayers that morning, I asked God to point out to me some way to be free of this resentment.
All right, real quick, before we get into what she does to get rid of the resentment, do you see this what was she using this resentment for?
Everything.
Get out of jail free card, right? Anything that didn't go her way, I'll blame my mother. Listen to what I'm about to tell you guys. Victims don't get sober. And forget about even people that drink or use. People that play the victim out there, they don't ever get well. They don't ever process, they don't ever move on, they don't ever gain strength from it, they don't ever get a different perspective on anything. Because when you're the victim, it's poor me, wasn't my fault, I didn't do everything. You're looking for sympathy, you're looking for a way so that you can justify your other shitty behavior. Why do you leave your kids at home? Well, I didn't go, it's like whatever it is, this was, you know what I mean? I wasn't done right, so I'm not going to do right. Victims do not get sober. Victims do not get better. People that take responsibility, people that, that whole thing with fear, right? Face everything and recover. That's people that get better. People that say fuck everything and run or blame everything. I mean, listen, here's the thing. I say this to you all the time. I love you guys. I like you guys. I really do care about the past traumas that you have. I have sympathy, I have empathy, I feel bad. But at the same time, I don't really care what you've been through if you're going to let it continue to fuck up the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, we need to deal with it, heal, get better, and move on. And even if all you ever do with that, what you've been through, is help somebody else through it, well, I mean, you know what I mean? I had a friend from New York called me yesterday with a three-way from somebody that I know in Chicago, and I'm not really close with him, but I met him a couple of times, and he goes, Mike, I'm going through a divorce. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Because this and that, and we start talking this and that, and I'm helping him through stuff, and I'm telling him things, and he's like, but yeah, she did this, and she did that. And I say, listen, unfortunately, none of that matters. I said, what is your main goal? I just want to be a good, I said, okay, you want to be a good dad and be the best dad you can be and be the best person you can be? You need to leave, you know what I mean? Who cares who did what to who? It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is today and tomorrow. I'm not saying we don't deal with that stuff. We have to deal with this stuff in the past, but we're not going to drag it around with us. We're not going to let it be an anchor around our neck. Go ahead.
In my prayers that morning, I asked God to point out to me some way to be free of this resentment. During the day, a friend of mine brought me some magazines to take to a hospital group I was interested in. I looked through them. A banner across one featured an article by a prominent clergyman in which I caught the word resentment. He said, in effect, If you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks. And if you find you have come to mean it and want it for them, and you realize that they were you, and you realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassion, understanding, and love. It worked for me then, and it has worked for me many times since, and it will work for me every time I am willing to work it. Sometimes I have to ask first for the willingness, but it too always comes. And because it works for me, it will work for all of us. As another great man says, the only real freedom a human being can ever know is doing what you ought to do because you want to do it. This great experience that released me from the bondage of hatred and replaced it with love is really just another affirmation of the truth I know. I get everything I need in Alcoholics Anonymous, and everything I need, I get. And when I get what I need, I invariably find that it is just what I wanted all the time.
Okay. Did you guys identify with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see how she was looking at a lot of things the wrong way, like with her mother, right? Anybody in here grow up kind of not the most ideal situations at home as a kid? Okay, here's the thing, right? Just so you know, most people are doing the best they can. There are not too many healthy, well-adjusted people out there fucking kids up on purpose. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, most people are doing the best they can. Like with this lady's mother, right? She got divorced, the husband left. She gave the kids to their parents. Why? She probably thought it was the best thing for them. You know what I mean? It wasn't because she wanted
Trying to hurt her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, if you can't put yourself in that position, if you can't show anybody any type of empathy, forgiving, and caring, how do you expect anybody to show it to us? Right? I mean, if you really put yourself in somebody else's shoes, like, the only difference between any of us is the circumstances in life that we were brought up in. You know what I mean? Like, and the only difference between me and Adrian is the vessel we were born into. Our spirits are all the same when we were born into something. So we live a life, we go through things, and it shapes us and develops us and molds us. But a lot of it, I mean, anybody have anything to say?
I do. I've tried that. I got a really big resentment about the lady that I believe pretty much, my dad committed suicide, but I believe there was a reason, person behind it that drove him there. And I did that. I didn't want to, but my sponsor said, you got to.
Yeah.
He said, anything you want for yourself or your family, just put her name in there too. It was fucking hard to do. Because and that is one of the reasons why I'm probably back in a place like this, is because I still want to kill that motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, all right, so let's just say, for example, she was more even awful than you think she was, right? Your dad also played a part. You know what I mean? Like, he also did. And I'm not villainizing him or going bad, but it's like,
I'm mad at him fucking too.
yeah. And here's the thing. This is the one thing, because I had a friend commit suicide, and I really do pity people like that. And I don't like the word pity, because I don't mean like when someone thinks that's their best option. Because here's the thing. I was never a put a gun to my head, blow it off type of guy. But the way I used drugs, the type of drugs I did, it was really just suicide by the installment plan, right? Like, that's what we're all doing. We're all killing ourselves quickly or slowly, however you want to look at it, but that's what we're really doing. And your dad chose, and I get it, dude. I get it. I would be devastated. Talk to Robert that works here too. His dad did that. And that is not an easy thing. But getting back to what I was saying before, we can't keep letting that mess you up. Because
and it is.
No, I know. Well,
exactly
listen, it's a very serious thing. I completely understand. But you know what? We gotta get that taken care of, so that you break the cycle. And I don't mean you're gonna commit suicide, but it's like,
no, I I'm so mad at him.
Yeah.
I would never do that to my son.
No, I know you.
You know what I
wouldn't.
mean? Like, and I prayed for him too.
No,
but I also cuss him.
Here's the thing. I know you would never do that to your son. But now your son's watching you grow up as an alcoholic.
Right.
And
Which ain't good.
exactly. That's because here's the whole thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, especially to people like us that have kids. Man, let's break the cycle. Let's show them a better way. Let's show them a way that we weren't shown. Listen, there is no doubt. I'm looking you right in your eye. There's no fucking doubt in my mind that you're strong enough to do this. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, when I say you have no excuse, I don't mean it in that, like, you can do this. You can do this. I know you can. You know what I mean? Just because it made you trip and fall once and you wound up back here, that doesn't mean you're not going to get up stronger. I truly believe you will. And that's the thing with, listen, if you don't believe in yourself, I wholeheartedly, with every cell in my body, believe that every single person in here can go out, be better, do better. And like I say all the time, right? Cullen, you got two types of people in your life right now. You got people that are praying for you to get better, and this is for every single person in here. And you got people praying for your downfall. To me, that's no option. The people that are praying for us, we're going to show them that we were worth it. The people that are praying for your downfall, there ain't no better fuck you than the polite fuck you. The one with you're looking good, you got a smile, and you're doing good, because then they're like, damn.
They hate that shit.
Yeah, they do.
So isn't that, you know what I
There are
mean?
people out there for every one of us.
Yeah.
that we know someone like that.
That's what I'm saying. And isn't that the best way? Because those people that are praying for our downfall, do not give them anything to celebrate. I don't know about you, but I definitely use that as motivation. Nope, not me. I'm better than this. I didn't feel better than this from a long time ago. But see, this is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're sitting in this room now, you've had a little voice for a long time. Adrian, you've had a voice that's going, come on, man, you're better than this. You know, and it takes the place of your nephew sometimes, right? Like when your nephew calls up and says, come on, Unc, that ain't you. You've been saying to yourself for a long time, man, this ain't me, right? We know it ain't us. We don't know any other way. We're trying to show you a way. Your spirit's a little sick. Take care of it. Take care of it. Every single human being walking the face of this earth right now should be taking care of their spiritual, their physical, and their mental health. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about us. Mm-hmm. So, guys, anybody have anything they want to say? Anybody that want to add? Or we're going to be, Jody's Zoom meeting is at 7. Not that Jody. He's got no meetings. 7 o'clock meeting. I don't know. Say some real shit. Don't say some off the surface shit. Say some real shit. Share. Open up the floodgates and continue to give a shit about your life, because there's people out there that give a shit about your life. All right, guys. Thank you. Love yous.